Well, good morning and welcome to all of you here in the room, all you happy Merliniters. Thank you for joining us here in the room, and then thank you for joining us online, all of those who are on the web right now, with our class this morning with Guy Finley. Here's the layout for today. Guy will give about a 60-minute talk. We'll take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back for about 25 minutes or so of Q&A with Guy. And at that point, we'll kind of keep you guys going, anybody who wants to stay there, and we'll keep it running for anybody in the room who wants to talk. But as you guys already know in the room, you can talk at any time during that as well. So it's a good time to participate and plenty of time to do that. Stay with us as long as you can. If you have any technical problems online, just go to your chat box or question box and send us a message through there, and we'll try to help you as best we can. I think that's all I need to say announcement-wise. Let's go ahead and get into the topic and key lesson in the talk for this morning. Here's the topic: the wisdom you need to let go and enter the divine flow of life. And here's this morning's key lesson. It's well known that storm-tossed waves often expose new treasures along the shoreline, and there is unexpected wealth to be collected by those who know the secret value of rough seas. And yet, even though most of us have little tolerance for anything that rocks our boat, the truth of the matter is self-evident. Unwanted moments introduce us to dark parts of ourselves that would otherwise never be realized, let alone healed by the divine light that has come to reveal them.
I was thinking where to begin, but I suppose good morning would be a good start. The original meaning of good morning was God's morning. It's not so correct anymore, but it will always be correct. Regardless the name you give that divine celestial love, whose intelligence ceaselessly oversees the creation of all things that are true and good and that serve what is true and good, regardless their temporary appearance. We're going to take a nice, long, deep look at this today together. And I guess I would start by asking you, how many of you would like to be in the divine flow? Pretty popular term, the flow of life, isn't it? Most of us only know it moving hand to mouth. That's right. In the flow of the pursuit of a pleasure, the temporary abeyance of the insatiable appetite that gives rise to those longings, and what we call the good flow, God's flow of life, is when we see everything flowing exactly as we've imagined it should go, and if it's not going that way, then somehow or other, whatever it is that we call this life, it has set itself against me again. Suffering succotash. We're coming up in about 2 weeks, 2+ weeks, to our talks in the Pines, where I'm going to produce in a consolidated series of talks, interconnected as they are, what I hope will do for you what I intend this morning's talk to do, which is to help you see how little you see. With God as my witness, that's the only pain you have, is that you don't know that you see life through a set of eyes, that though they can't see any differently than what they do, you suffer for their poor vision. Because you live in a world the size of the one that you see, and you don't know what else to look for. Because everything you see that you don't want to see tells you there's something wrong with what you see, and there is never anything wrong with what you see. The pain is always in the nature of the seer, always. Not that this world isn't corrupt, bankrupt, broken, evil in some respect, but not because God makes evil, but because human beings pretending to be God can only make evil things out of what they call the denial of their good. As paradoxical as it sounds, it isn't until you and I, which is the theme not just of the talks in the Pines, but for the talk at New Renaissance coming up this week too as well, yeah. At some point, and no one can tell you when it's going to be, but you can participate in the gradual revelation of it, you have to see how absolutely useless it is for you to habitually suffer over the things that you do. You haven't expired. Can you listen to that? You haven't expired useless suffering. Now, why would I continue to cling to and fight with life unless I believe the life I'm looking at isn't how life should be? Isn't that why I fight with life? Why do you fight with others? You're not right. There's something wrong with you. Never suspecting that there's something in us that continually, there's so many things I love about this and that you're not going to like at all, that continually brings us these moments where a grain of sand is introduced into this shell called self. And there's an irritation, and we're constantly trying to spit out that grain of sand from this shell of a self because it's upsetting I know oysters and apples don't go together, but it's constantly upsetting the apple cart, the oyster cart. So what I want to do today and what I'm going to do for the next whatever number of years it is that I still have on this planet, I want to help you understand a way that you can turn all of this useless suffering into something so very useful, and not just for you, but for the whole of the world. Something that we are so far away from understanding, but that every day, without even recognizing it, I watch you when you come into this room. What are your minds filled with? Your minds are filled with what your mind gives you to see and contemplate as being essential to bringing an end to an inescapable conflict that's an actual part of your nature you don't recognize, and that's forever producing the next profitable thing to do with your time and your mind, and you have no suspicion at all that your mind is being stolen from you every moment that you give thought to what it points to as being necessary for you to be a human being who no longer suffers the way you do. Imagine you create suffering by trying to figure out how to stop it, because that's what happens. Ready? Ready, Eddie? So let's start simple, because we're going to look at things in scale, levels and scale. We're going to take this wonderful eye-opening, and I don't just mean eyes, I mean eye. a new way for you to see and understand yourself, because you have new eyes to see the whole of yourself as only the truth can help you do. What happens to the body when we don't eat right and indulge ourselves in the pleasures that on one hand we know we ought not? I eat the things I ought not instead of the things I should. To quote Paul, he would die if he heard me say that. But what happens to that body? Please, anybody? Pain and suffering. Well, why is there pain and suffering when I take into my body what my body doesn't want? And by the way, why would I take into my body what my body doesn't want? Unless my mind overrides my body and convinces me that this is a good thing to do, even though there'll be hell to pay. You won't sleep, it's Alka-Seltzer, it's plop, plop, fizz, fizz time for you, but what the heck? Why do I do that? Well, we know why, because desire outweighs intelligence. And the desire is, it sees what it wants, and what it wants, that's all. I'm seized by what I see is necessary. But why does my body suffer? Please don't discount the question. Why does my body suffer when I eat stuff I ought not? The short answer is because my body, at whatever level my body may be at in terms of its general health, my body has a certain equilibrium, invisible, but it has a balance, such as it may be. And you can look at people and you can see people that they're keeping the balance in place and they can barely walk. They're so out of balance. So there's a certain natural intelligence that lives inside this body, and this body being the collection all the way up from the most minute particle to the organs that cooperate and work together to create this entity who's moving his hands around, that's suffering from allergies. It has an equilibrium, doesn't it? So what is this pain? What is my pain other than an awareness that a certain equilibrium has been upset? And the pain is saying to me, Guy, there's an equilibrium. You've upset the apple cart. You need to reset the apple cart. Yes or no, please? So that we can see, if you can, that there is an invisible equilibrium, a harmonious balance that exists at a cellular level to all of the things that those cells coalesce to create into organs, into a body that houses the organs, so that everything that enters into that body either cooperates with the equilibrium and participates in its constant perfection, which it's intended to do, or it is interfering with that equilibrium, and then that body suffers and then blames you for serving it chocolate. Just talking out loud. Please? So the point being, and it's evident if we can see it, the cell itself and everything that is built of those cells is in fact part of a body which, whether the smallest part all the way to the largest expression of that, is in an equilibrium that when upset, I can feel as being disturbed. Please? Now, can you understand, because I'm asking you to, that if that's true of the tiniest cell, and it's equally true of the body that the cells build, then wouldn't it be true of every body that is part of a larger self, so that everything that we experience, not just our physical bodies and the sudden disturbance in the equilibrium, but that something is always coming into this greater body. Where's my nesting dolls? Ooh. Me. Rattling. Something is disturbing my equilibrium. Okay. But that equilibrium belongs to another body, doesn't it? Wait for it. That's why I have these things. And that equilibrium belongs to still another body, doesn't it? So that each body within each body has its own equilibrium, but nothing can come into this greater body that doesn't affect the bodies within the body. We know nothing of this other body. All we know is our little bodies. Feed me, entertain me, bother me, give me something to do, to think about. That's all. That's the whole of our life is contained in this minuscule mind that is content with its ceaseless discontentment, because in the disturbance of the discontentment, it can imagine a larger body in time to come where it will finally be relieved of all that it is disturbing it. Do you see this picture I'm talking about? Now, to some extent, can you see that whatever this disturbance is, go back to the body, that somehow or other, when I disturb this body because of what I put in it, we're not talking about the big picture yet, I'm just bringing you in, that when I disturb it, what is this disturbance I feel other than an awareness that somehow or other my body is now in debt? Isn't it? Can you make that leap with me? It's saying you've put something in, shouldn't come in. You need to either stop putting that in, or you need to put in, if you're going to eat that cupcake, eat 3 carrots. That's the solution. You have yogurt with your chocolate, which is why you now have chocolate yogurt. You think I'm kidding? You have no idea how devious this mind is, how dedicated it is to pursuing what it calls its equilibrium. So, taken as a whole, can we see that when there is a disturbance in the system, that disturbance is making me aware of the fact that some obligation to that system is not being met? Please, do you see this with me? So the disturbance is because I'm running in debt. I'm running in debt because I sold something, I gave something up of myself for a pleasure that didn't produce what I thought it was. It made me sicker. And all I know to do from time to time is try to figure out how I can, rebalance my life. Is that not what this mind is? Isn't that what it's doing all the time? What is everything that I think about other than some vain attempt to rebalance whatever the disturbance is that's come into me, believing first that I understand the nature of the disturbance, and then even more importantly, that understanding the nature of the disturbance, which I don't, because if I did, I would pay the debt. Believing that once I understand the nature of the disturbance, then I know what to bring into the mix. I need to go here, get that, fix this, eat that, pay them, do. That's what my life is. My mind just never stops running, trying to get its next thing to bring into this body so that it can create a new equilibrium and the disturbance will go away. Except the thing that you don't see is that what disturbs you is everything you brought into yourself in order to bring an end to this innate disturbance. And this innate disturbance, I put together some words, is a debt in action. A debt in action. When a man or a woman begins to realize that the reason I'm disturbed, feeling this pain, this anxiety, is because something has disturbed an equilibrium, and I believe I know what was disturbed. Don't you know what was disturbed every time? Don't you? Of course I do. One way or another, it's you. It's a world that shouldn't be this way. It's you that went that way instead of going with me. And every time I feel this disturbance, listen, please, I'm sure that it is you who is in debt to me. The world owes me, doesn't it? Instead of understanding that that moment is an experience of what I'm calling a debt in action, the appearance of some movement into me that makes apparent that something is out of balance, and that requires being balanced. And at some point for me to recognize that I've never brought this into balance, at best temporarily abated whatever was causing me the bitterness or pain. And this debt in action, to use another word for it, is karma. Everything I've been describing to you so far is the description of karma. Human beings today, most of us look at our unwanted pain, those moments where there is a disturbance, and what do the minute there's a disturbance in us? What do? Summarily, I resist it. That's what I do. Because to me, resisting the disturbance, resisting the appearance of the debt in action, is how I balance things. It's instantaneous. The minute that something happens I don't want, an equal and opposing part of me appears to get rid of or otherwise control that situation, and in doing so, I finally, by fight or flight, reestablish balance in my life. Except there's one problem with this binary mind of fight or flight, and that is that it never balances anything other than its own image of the moment, so that it has a new image that it's temporarily copacetic with until, of course, the next challenge comes along, and then what happens to us? I'm back doing the same thing again. Are you following me, please? So I look at these disturbances, I look at this sudden awareness of this shaken up balance in myself. I look at it as something being done to me outside of me that is set against my happiness. And I want you to start understanding that what we're looking at in any moment of disturbance is an inevitable effect of what we can call a natural intelligence. Everything that disturbs us is the inevitable effect of a natural intelligence, and not just in our body, but in a greater body, and that within a still greater body, all the way from a single raindrop that's falling from the sky to a waterfall to the ocean of stars that you look up at night. Each and all, from the most microscopic to the macrocosmic, is constantly being called to remain in an equilibrium that was part of its creation. But that equilibrium, ready, is in a constant state of flux. And that constant state of flux in this grand equilibrium is karma at every level of creation. Because there is nothing in creation that isn't in a constant flux, because there's no end to something entering into that creation, and in that moment bringing about the possibility. Now in creation it happens effortlessly. This morning I was trying to figure out how I could possibly talk to you about some of these things. So I wanted to know, well, you know what, how would you look at this? And I don't have an image. Remember the picture of dropping that rock in the pond? Do you know that when you drop a rock into a pond, we look at it and we saw this cause and effect, and that something greater for blah, blah, blah. That the kinetic energy of that stone, when it enters the water, is instantly transformed by the water it enters into, where the water not only absorbs the kinetic energy of the rock, temporarily warming the water that it's entered into, but that the kinetic energy then moves into wave energy. It moves into other forms of energy that move through the entire body of water. Now, take that picture. Think of yourself as a little pond. Is there not any moment in life in which something is coming into that little pond called my person? Yes or no? And I'm not just talking about the world we see. That's the problem. Because the world we see is always so static relative to my identification with things that it never dawns on me that this life, okay, can a rock fall in a pond anywhere that doesn't change everything connected to that pond? And what isn't connected to that pond? So here's one tiny thing. This is kind of a description, a karmic description of the butterfly effect. Here's this one thing comes in, and the whole of that energy transforms the whole of what it enters into and brings about what it has entered into, a new relationship that body didn't have. And now that new body is ready to receive another pebble, another stone. Are you following the metaphor? So each and everything, all the time, doesn't belong to. Each and everything is an element in a river of celestial energies, and that river of celestial energies is always balancing itself so that it can continue to make new creations that come out of it. That's karma. That's karma. There's no karma that, in quotes, doesn't affect all of creation. So that every karma, every moment of that interaction between what enters into a body and what it produces when something enters the body, by the nature of the body, it resists what enters into it. You and I believe that the appearance of that resistance is the same as the proof that whatever it is that brought that resistance up should be resisted further. Isn't that what we do? Something comes in, disturbs me, I meet it with summary resistance, don't I? Why? Because I believe, without even having to think about it, that whatever it is I'm resisting is against me. But what if I can understand that resistance is one of the elements of karma? And that all karma works for the greater good of all of creation, because creation is never not expressing itself. Remember the movie A River Runs Through It? I didn't want to bring that in because I want more and more to not find ideas that only some people remember. But this beautiful idea of a river runs through it. I'm describing to you the fact that you and I are not just in a river through which something endlessly is entering into, but that we are part of that river, and everything that unfolds in that river, we are a participant in. And that's what karma is. Karma is the experience of this river, not of your life. You think everything's about you. You think everything's about you, don't you? Isn't everything about me? Can't be about you. It's about me. Tell me that's not how you see things. I care only about you when what I care about affects me. There is no real you or real me the way this mind has imagined it. In fact, understood more deeply, karma is the revelation that I'm living from an imagined identity. Because I have taken on a body. I have taken on an imagined nature. I'm identified with the conditioning through time. And that identification produces what? What does every instant of identification produce? Resistance. Does it not? Please, can you see it? What do I resist other than that which has come into this identity, into this body I think is me? And when it comes into this body I think is me, suddenly there's a disturbance in this body. And I believe that somehow or other what's come into this body is the proof that it shouldn't be like that, instead of understanding by the grace of God something has come into me and shown through this disturbance that there is not only something that is out of balance, but I'm being invited to enter into that balance through karma. Karma is the experience of what you call karma is the invitation to transcend the nature that temporarily created that disturbance. Am I going too fast? Now, I've better move into something simpler but intimately connected. We're talking about karma. And we're saying that, here's a river. Is there any point in the river that's the center of the river? Is there? And you can't separate the raindrops from the ocean from the evaporation, from the rain into the river, and round we go. In the river, the circle of life. The circle of life. That's it, like that. Everything that enters the river changes the river. Even though the river, to our minds, remains changeless. Everything changes the river. Can a stone enter into the pond without changing the pond and the nature of the stone? Bringing it into a new relationship? Yes or no? So it is with this river. Karma is a river. That's what's so beautiful about it, but we can't see it. If you understood that the experience of your life is because of a ceaseless, beneficent, merciful act of something bringing into your awareness where something is incomplete, that in the moment of the revelation of that imbalance, you are brought into something that will bring about a new balance in that body, and that body never stops changing. It is eternal. It is timeless. Now, that's the big picture. Did I communicate some of that? Okay. Now, get ready for what will seem a very strange transition. What was the story of Cinderella about? What makes it so appealing? The truth, it's about karma. Yeah, it's a grand tale of karma. But specifically, it's a grand scale of karma because of one principal lesson, 6 words, that's really everything we're going to talk about today, because we've been talking about how many of you, when something happens that you don't want, are you in the flow or are you in the oh no? Which is it? Oh no! Why? Because you're messing with my flow. Yes or no? Now, nobody knows your flow. Your flow is in a dreamland someplace. Incidentally, not even exclusive to you, just the flow of unconscious associations of a mind asleep to itself, trying to rescue itself. Just the flow, flow, flow. And then you look at me, you say one thing. If I'm impatient with you, whose flow am I in? I'm blaming you for interrupting my flow. Yes? So why is Cinderella the story of karma, and how does it apply to you and me in every moment? Write it down, 6 words, then we're going to examine it. Dreaded 6 words by all of humanity. If the shoe fits, wear it. Jesus, you are always denying the moment. You don't even know you're denying the moment. The agitation and the despair, the anger, the greed, the ambition, the loneliness, it just never stops disturbing and disturbing itself by resisting the appearance of itself and dragging you into some kind of distraction by which you can momentarily feel as if you're balanced, because you're avoiding everything that the shoe has come onto your foot to show you about the nature that wears it. God, what would happen if just think for a moment, if every human being on the planet, forget it, it's not going to happen, but it can happen with you. And the karma, your karma is not just your karma. Your karma is the karma of this consciousness, the karma of this world and everything that has ever transpired on it and within it. That's karma. It is a ceaseless river of an infinite number of creations, all of which connected through this life blood of energy that moves through it, that is always working and working and working to reestablish the harmonious source of itself, so that God might be expressed through an endless perfected creation that never stops being perfected, because karma ensures that the balance that was out is in and out and in and out, a singularity. What would happen if every human being, here you are, and you're in your car, you're at home, you get a text, you get an email, a thought comes and visits you, and the moment that you're visited by anything that upsets what you call yourself, you tell me what happens. You instantaneously are thinking about who done it, why they did it, what you need to do so they stop doing it, so that you can stop being disturbed. But what if you understood that no matter what it was that entered into that river that you are a part of, entered into that river, so that you could realize, you know what? I am being asked in this moment, by the very entrance of this impression, this thought, this experience, I'm being asked to put on the shoe and wear it, so that in accepting what it is that has come into me, I accept that which that river is going to balance by itself. Self-settling. Oh God, if you could understand that and begin to work at it. Real life is self-settling. Capital S, capital S. Self-settling. It never stops settling itself. Look at the forest. Look at the creatures in the woods. Look at everything that's natural. Look at the ocean. If it weren't for human beings trying to balance their life by taking everything they think they need to balance it, you would see that this is a perfect ecological, perfect niche, constantly creating and recreating itself perfectly, because everything that comes into this world from above, all of the active energies, timeless, celestial, coming into this earth, constantly recreates the earth into a new conception that better fits the relationship of what is timeless and what is in time. All the time doing that. But not me. No, I'm better, I'm different than that. Don't disturb me. So then in that moment, what happens? Here comes the energy. I think the energy is personal. Don't you? I take every influx of something that I don't want as being personal, and the influx of everything that happens to corroborate what I want, I don't even think it's personal, I just think it belongs to me. He's back. Is that me?
No, go ahead. I think you're good. Just talk for a moment.
Gosh, what a shame. Let's make a transition. Imagine for a moment, and actually you don't have to if you've understood this, imagine that you're a grapevine. You've heard the expression? Imagine you're a grapevine. Is there anything in creation that isn't a grapevine? Or is everything a grapevine and a branch? And that the branch becomes the vine to the next branch and the vine to the next branch. Do you understand in scale? Creation, 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 creation. Every sub-creation, the branch of the creation that gives rise to it. So here I am a vine, and my life is my branch. Yes, please? Following it? Now, I look at my branch, and I taste the fruit on the branch. That's the worst fruit I ever tasted. That's bitter. It's misshapen. Now, can a branch be anything other than the vine that gives rise to it? Or is the fruit of the branch the proof of the vine? Is the fruit of the branch the proof of the vine or not? Well, what are you growing? Or we should say, what are you groaning? See, I look at my day. I'm angry. I'm anxious. I can't keep my attention. I'm so easily distracted. And I look at it and then I wonder, why is my life like this? Why do people treat me this way? Why do people see me coming and turn the other way? It's simple, because when I look at the fruit, when I look at the branch, if the branch isn't growing the fruit I want, it's not my branch. You messed with my fruit. No, you can't mess with my fruit. Are you able to see this with me or not? Its assumption is that if the fruit's bitter, it's not because of me. If the shoe fits, here's a bitter moment. I'm so angry. I'm really afraid. God, I just heard I was going to die. Holy mother of pearl. I haven't finished growing all the fruit. And in that moment, when all of that's there, I look at this anger, this frustration. That can't be my shoe. Do you understand? That can't be my branch. That's impossible. Why? Because I only grow good stuff. I'm trying to show you something. The whole notion of changing our experience of life without changing our relationship to the actual source of that experience has to be seen. How shall I say it? You write this down. The vine that denies the branch is as false as the branch it denies. The vine that denies the branch is as false as the branch it denies. My experience of life cannot be separated from what it is that I came into this life being, and that whatever it is that acts on this being is doing so, that being might be brought into a grander, more broad relationship with the whole of life, so that the river can remain flowing. Are you flowing when you're angry or glowing? Which is it? Next. Can any creation at any level be complete without something serving to complete it in that same moment? Think with me. Here's the branch and the vine. Can that vine be complete without something that's acting on it to complete it? So that every vine has a vine above it, doesn't it? We're looking at vine, branch, huh? And that energy that moves through the grand vine with a capital V, the divine. Well, it's not a bad picture, is it? The divine. I am the vine, you are the branches. Except you abide in me, you will never know anything of the kingdom of heaven. What is the kingdom of heaven? It is this flow and that which ensures its circulation through all there is. In the beginning was the Word. In the beginning was the energy that flowed through the vine that followed its creation. So you start to understand that there is no moment in which, and this is key, that energy isn't entering into that which is waiting for it to enter into it. I know you don't see it. That's why I want you. This is why we have these talks. Is not the vine waiting? And it is waiting for the light, the energy, the stream to come into it. And when it comes into it, what does that vine do? It takes that energy, and whatever in that vine is waiting for that energy, by the law of that karma, it is changed. And when that vine is changed, it moves that chain just like that stone in that pond. It moves that energy right on down into the branch, and the branch is waiting for the vine. And the branch goes, there's the vine. And then the branch moves that energy into a new creation called the fruit. And the fruit gives rise to the seed. The hip bone's connected to the ankle bone. Yes, please, do you see it? So in that interaction, There is never a point in which there isn't a new creation brought forth. Because that's what karma does, is bring forth a new creation, because everything that that energy acts upon is intended to bring that into a new equilibrium that becomes the ground of the next branch and the next vine, ad infinitum, ceaselessly. Our problem is what? Our problem is that we know what the flow is. Doesn't it ever strike you strange? You go someplace and you're in the flow. And then somebody says something to you, the one little thing happens, and you're an absolute wreck. Why? Because I was in the flow. You weren't in the flow. You were in the way thought creates something to identify with so as to rebalance what was disturbed the moment before, and then you call the movement of thought the flow. And the movement of thought happens to be outside the flow unless those thoughts are in corroboration with what is unfolding inside of you, which is the point of true teachings. Our present level of self, part of the reason we're not in the divine flow, our level of self, it looks at the image of the thing it believes will balance it. I look at where I'm going, who I'm going to be, what I'm going to get away from. Because if I could just get away from you, if I could just get away, why me? If I could just get away, I wouldn't be disturbed anymore. You ever gone on a vacation and been really disturbed? Come on. You know why disturbance goes with you everywhere? Hold on to your hat. By the grace of God, it goes with you everywhere. So that you can be ever more aware of the fact that something in me is always making something static out of that which I need in order to become a flow. See the contradiction? My mind makes something static, where I'm going, what I'm going to do, the next pleasure, it makes it static. And why do I make things static? Why does the mind do that? So that it can identify with what it looks at, and in that momentary balance seemingly balance between object imagined and identification with it, so that suddenly I'm in balance. Except there's only one problem with that balance, isn't there? It began as an imbalance. See it? No? So I see everything statically, not ecstatically, statically. Yes or no? Now listen, we're going to go into this so deeply over the talks. What an incredible thing it is, and what a blessing it is, when finally, by the grace of God and your willingness to accept whatever is required of you to enter into that true river of life, to start realizing that resistance that I hate is actually part of a flow. Is not resistance part of the flow? Can you see it? Some of you are looking at me like you don't know what I'm talking about. Here's this energy. Here I am. I'm a human being. I am a participant not only in the individual creation as this personality has established things, but I'm also part of this consciousness that was created long before I had a body. And this consciousness, just like everything in creation, is constantly being asked that the will of heaven might come upon the will of earth and perfect it, bring it into that beautiful river, that perfect river of life. Please? And so naturally, I resist naturally. The vine resists the light that gives life to the branch. The branch has to resist what comes from the vine in order to give rise to the fruit. Because resistance is part of what is a relationship between what is active. You can't have active and passive without some form of resistance that produces a new form, a new consciousness. All I know when something happens that I don't want is that something has thrown everything out of balance. And if it's thrown it out of balance, I got to reestablish balance, yes or no? What happens if you discover that you don't have to reestablish balance? Now, I understand at the physical level, one day you wake up and you realize, you know what, I eat this stuff, I say I can't, I won't, I shouldn't, and then I do it again, and then I have another reason why, and then I just agree to live with the suffering born out of being a human being who prefers the pleasure of ignorance, because I don't want to go through what my body's going to scream at me. Do you like your body screaming at you? Your body screams at you for what it wants. But you're not aware of it screaming at you because you're too busy figuring out what it's trying to say to get it to stop screaming. It'll stop screaming if I just do this, if I just go there, if I just eat this, if I just run, it'll stop screaming. Does it ever stop screaming? And is it screaming a bad thing? You think it is. It's screaming balance. Allow what is trying to show you this imbalance to bring you into balance with it. Not my will, but thy will be done. The perfect expression of the river of karma, only in this instance, Christ's karma was humankind's karma. Just as you and I are intended to be that way, so that instead of the ceaseless resistance that we feel, do we not? Anything that bugs me, I don't want. Doesn't it seem absolutely natural to you to set yourself against anything you don't want? Doesn't that? Now let's just imagine for a moment that you've been following me. Please let this moment pass. I don't want to go do that. I don't want to have to be there again. Why me? I have to get up. Please let this moment pass. And I want it to pass because I believe that whatever it is that has come into this life, even the flow of time itself, that I believe somehow or other it is life acting against me. It's not fair. And anything that I think acts against me is seen as something that is unfair. What if you began to understand what I've been talking about so that you recognize the impossibility of life acting against you? What if you actually understood that life cannot act against you because you are life? That no energy can act against energy without bringing something new into existence out of that relationship. What if you actually understood that you are that celestial matrix itself in human form, where you are not outside of this river, you are not outside of all that is transpiring, but you are an essential relationship between something that requires a certain kind of being to establish a relationship with another order of being called this planet. So that in accepting when the shoe is put on your foot, when he says this and you get angry, when she doesn't respect you and you finally want to kill them, to realize, you know what? Wait a minute, the shoe fits. It went on my foot. I feel this pain. I'm going to wear it. Then you know what it means to put on the Christ. And only then do you know what it means to put on the Christ. Because what are you putting on in that moment? I'm literally accepting the cross of the moment, am I not? Won't someone else carry this for me? Won't somebody else carry this for me? I'm in so much pain. I'm so angry. There's so much violence. There's so much greed. So much selfishness. Won't somebody else carry this for me? That's what you do when you blame people in the world around you. You say, you carry what was given to me, that I might die to that nature so that a new man, a new woman might be born out of that relationship when the divine shoe comes on the earthly foot and I decide to wear it because I recognize the futility of doing anything other than that in the moment. Isn't it amazing how quickly you throw away the shoe? Isn't it? I always wondered what the old saints were talking about because it's so screwed up. You have no idea how badly things have been screwed up in this world in terms of religion, true teachings, how screwed up it is. Putting on the Christ, putting on the divine mantle. It's not an ideal, it's not an idea, it's not a belief. It's a personal action that requires you personally understanding that what I must do in this moment if I'm going to wear this shoe is I have to accept everything that I feel when it goes on my foot. I have to accept everything I see when it goes onto my foot. Everything I have to. And then I have to not only accept that, but then the next part of that river is where my mind starts to talk to me about all these things. You're such a good spiritual person, or you're the worst spiritual person. All that conversation is the antithesis of if the shoe fits, wear it. Wearing it means that I agree to let everything come into me just as it comes. Let it do exactly what it's intended to do, which is what? I want to go back to it. It's there to settle the moment so the new moment can become the next settlement. That's what it's there for. It's perfect. It's a river. You're meant not to float in it. You're meant not to dive in it. You're not meant to build a house by it. You're meant to participate in the movement. And in that participation, participation in the river of karma is liberation. Because through it, you begin to recognize where it is that the things you do. Can you imagine, here's a person and they have a certain kind of thought, and it's natural to them to think about why they're gotta go, gotta do, gotta get. It's natural to be anxious, angry. It's natural to have all these reasons why I don't want to be who I am. Don't you have all those reasons? Imagine a person sitting there in the middle of it and for a split second realizing, you know what? Wow, there's that resistance. There's that resistance. The resistance is part of the movement of the river. The resistance is in the river, not set against it. The resistance is in the river, not set against it. And you start to understand that the resistance is part of the movement, and you let that resistance serve what it's intended to, which is the illumination of the whole of that moment, including your participation in it. You let that do that, and what happens to the resistance? The resistance becomes the flow. Imagine. No, you left to be angry, upset, frightened, thinking about all these things. By the grace of God, you've been dissolved into the river, like the man of salt who finds the ocean. I got to bring this to an end. If I'm negative, am I in the flow or outside of it? Be careful. If I'm negative, I'm still in the flow. I just don't know how to let that flow reveal to me what's saying no, no, no. Nothing is outside of that river. Even my wish that the river didn't exist is still part of it because it's still part of the education, isn't it? So now you know the expression. How many know the expression, let go and let God? Yes or no? Let go and let it flow. Then you'll know whether or not there's a God. The God you call on is outside. It isn't still outside. It's a lesson still to be learned in this pseudo flow called whatever your name is. I've tried in different ways to say the same thing. For some of us, the idea, which is so strange in one respect to me, who would have ever thought that at 75 years old it would take that long to actually understand what was meant in the truest meaning of it, to put on the Christ? Didn't Christ put on the whole of human consciousness? To what end? That it might be changed by him accepting what takes place when he does that. So you can take that idea if it appeals to you religiously, and if it doesn't, then you can bring it into the everyday life, which it's intended to be anyway. Here you are, you're irritated, you're so agitated. Just being around you is a disturbance. Did you know that? You know, most of us have no idea that we are a ceaseless disturbance because we see everybody else that we've disturbed as the source of our pain. So you have disturbance giving rise to disturbance, giving rise to greed and hatred and violence. Instead of disturbance giving rise to the divine realization that that's part of a flow that a man or a woman can enter into and die to the disturbance, and in doing so make room for another human being to begin to die to their own disturbance. So that one thing serves the greater good and the other serves nothing at all except the self that is self-serving. So what's the grand lesson in this? What's another way of saying let go and let it flow? What's another way of saying that? If the shoe fits, wear it. Be decent. At least attempt to be a decent human being. At least attempt it. You won't succeed at first. That shoe's just, you're going to say, this doesn't fit me. I hear that all the time. It's them. It's them. They bought me a pair of shoes. It's too small. They're trying to cram my foot into this shoe. No one's trying to cram your foot into a shoe. You're trying to cram what you don't like about them into some idea that lets you live with the fact that you were someone who was undisturbed until they came into your life. Life is disturbance because life is part of this movement of active and passive, of that which resists and that which is changed by it, which moves through it. You find that, you entered into a completely different relationship with life. And may it be so. May God help you to do so. Let's take a break. We'll come back and have our dialogue.
go into a couple announcements, I do want to say if you're on GoToWebinar and you'd like to speak with Guy, go ahead and raise your hand now. I see one hand is up, and now's the time we could start a queue for that, so you can do that as I give a couple announcements here. First of all, this Thursday night, this coming Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific time, I think Kate is going to put up a visual. Guy is going to be giving a talk at in a Zoom event at New Renaissance Bookstore, and you can go there and register at guyfinley.org/ticket. It's just $10. It's sponsored by a Portland bookstore called New Renaissance, which we've had a very long-standing relationship with. And Guy is going to be speaking kind of some preface remarks regarding all of the tips, talks, and I think as you'll see over the next coming weeks, that almost everything is going to lead into the talks in the pines, because it's around the summer solstice, and there's a certain, I think everybody feels a certain energy at that time, and that's so. This is who is going to be beginning. Same title, Your Passport to a New World. Same title as Tips: Beyond Stress, Struggle, and Useless Pain. Thursday the 6th at 6 p.m. And just write that down, or you'll see the link. Go guyfinley.org/ticket, and you can register for that. That's this coming Thursday. And then speaking of Talks in the Pines, that's coming up in 2.5 weeks. And that's a time where Guy is going to be giving several talks here, Friday, June 21st through the 23rd, and usually a couple more prior to that. And all of you online, you can still listen to Guy online for free, and that's not a problem. But if you miss it, we're selling a package. And by the way, that really helps the foundation. First of all, you get the package of these great talks, which kind of culminate in these Talks in the Pines, which Guy's been doing for over 20 years. We have some pines here in Merlin, and we used to go out in them, and I'm not sure, I don't think we're going out anymore because we do the online classes. It doesn't work as well outside, but pines are still here. And anyway, it's a great time to get together, and we invite anyone and everyone who can come here to Southern Oregon to be here for that. It's a great time to be together and meet each other. But if you can't do that, you can listen to it live online. There's Friday night, Saturday morning, and then Sunday, those 3 times. And if you cannot do that, you can buy the package. And again, as I say, that helps us. That helps the foundation be able to do what we do. So go to guyfinley.org/tips, and you can get all that information. All right, I think that's, other than you will get regular reminders through email about all the things this coming week that we always have, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. You'll get information about that, so look forward to that. And join us as often as you can. All right, let's go ahead and get started. Let's bring Guy in now. Guy, do you wish to say anything before we get started?
Nope, over to you.
Okay. I have 2 written questions, and we have 1 person in the queue. So again, if you're in GoToWebinar, you can raise your hand, a little icon that looks like that. Just click on it, and that'll bring you up into the queue. And if you're on any of the other platforms, you can also go write a question into the chat boxes or the question box, and that'll go through Kate, and she'll bring it to me. So let's go ahead and get started this morning with Jill. She's in the queue.
Hi, Guy.
Hi, Jill.
So I'll try to condense this real quick. I have a girlfriend who's having a bipolar manic episode currently, and so me and a couple friends were talking to her yesterday, and I noticed I saw these different eyes pop up in her, and it was with increasing speed. And she would say things like, I'll do what you want. I'll take my meds. And then the next eye would be like, oh, but I feel fine. I know what to do. And then the next eye would be like lying outright and laughing about it. And I know it's a crazy example, but is this how we are? is this really, I mean, like, seriously.
I know. I'm just laughing because you're, we go, could this like be how we are? Holy mother of pearl.
Yeah.
I don't want to see this. Oh, thank God. You took from that experience something your friends may never understand. And the important thing is not to fear what you see. Fear is the offspring of an unseen resistance to anything that challenges what I am formerly identified with. So that if I'm identified with myself as being someone who is this, that, or the other, I'm always afraid the moment that I see something that challenges that image. So when I see something that challenges my whole understanding of life, I'm terrified because I got no place to put it. I'm going to have to build a whole new reference frame. And I'm getting older. I don't want to build another frame. So you have to let all of that do what it's intended to do. You know, part of creation is destruction. We just don't understand that part. But when you understand that energy can neither be created nor destroyed, then we begin to understand that this so-called destruction of the image I have of life is not the destruction of life. It is merely me being asked to let go of a certain thing that no longer serves a purpose and let it become something else, which it will. It'll become the I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to talk about this. There's a passage in the New Testament where Christ says the builder threw away the cornerstone. The builder threw away the cornerstone. He didn't recognize the cornerstone. We're talking about cornerstone. Cornerstone, those of you who don't know, is the stone that sets the whole foundation. And the world has thrown away the cornerstone because the world rejects the foundation, which is the proof that when it comes to this river, there's no you. You think you're the cornerstone. Don't you? Please, am I making this up? Am I ever more rigid than when I'm negative? And I think I'm real because I'm so heavy. I'm so negative. Anyway, Jill, all good stuff. Do your work. Do your work. Be that little light in the corner, even if you don't say a word. And you ought not, by the way, in those instances, try to make somebody that's in the grip of legion see that they're in the grip of a legion. But watch, and you let all that movement take place, and it may appear or it may not, this perfect moment where something touches you, something opens in you, and it opens so that you can touch something in someone else. And then there's this flow of intelligence, there's this flow of love. Then there's just this movement, and now you're not special, you're just participating in it the way you've been given, because you've been perfected by allowing it to do what it does, and then you can pass along the energy of that vine into that branch, and the next person may receive a benefit from what you've done by putting on the Christ, by allowing that to do what it does. Over to you, Doug.
All right, let's take one. We have 4 written questions now, and then we have another person in the queue. But here's the first one. It's a carryover from last Sunday, Guy. And it's from Carl, and he says, "Hi, I would love for Guy to address this statement for myself, as I would like a little bit more insight. My mind is madly churning, but I'm watching. I am not it. That statement from VH, Vernon Howard, is a wake-up call. How do I see ever more clearly the impossible act of saving myself from myself?"
That's what karma is. That's what karma is. Karma is me seeing the futility of me saving myself. Isn't it? Am I making this up? Or is anybody there? I just saved myself. You know what? I straightened him out. I just saved myself. I buried somebody so I could get a little advantage, but in the end, I'll make it up. I just saved myself. I entered into this completely codependent relationship. I saved myself by thinking I'm helping you. No, I'm saving myself from seeing how negative you become if I stop giving you what you want. I saved myself. And then guess what happens? Capital K-A-R-M-A. Karma. You don't change. I didn't change. But that's not going to stop everything from needing to be changed, is it? You and I have a debt to every human being that ever lived or ever will live. And that's the beauty of your life, not the curse of it. And the payment of that debt is your rebirth. That's what rebirth is the payment of the debt in the moment. That's what rebirth is. Which means there's no end to the debt, because there's no end to the movement of heaven on earth, which means there's no end to rebirth, which means Christ is eternal, if you can follow all of that. One day you'll be happy about all of this. I know some of us will. I have enough debt. Over to you, Doug.
All right, Guy, let's do another question, a written question. And apparently this was from the Starship Enterprise. He goes, Doug is asking a question. He says, daily log star date 2024-5/31. While driving to work this morning, I was shocked to see that I was in a dream about how my life had turned out. A negative path for sure. Then I saw how my mind started to compare those friends and acquaintances who seemed to have done better at life than me. This is where Doug wanted to make the claim that everything would have been better if only. Then I woke up. I realized that this was the same dream or variation that I always have had. This time, and there was more, but this time there was more separation. And as I watched the dream, it began to fade and disappear. A sadness came over me suddenly. Doug prefers to think it was compassion for the pitiful consciousness, but it was probably the realization of the waste of a life, everyone's life. Guy, why the sadness?
Blessed are those who mourn. When I was first listening to the question, I was tempted to make a quip that the reason it changed on the spot was because it was hit by a photon torpedo, meaning a torpedo of light. That was Star Trek. They had photon torpedoes. If you're a fortunate man, Doug, and it seems that you are, at least to this point, you persist. You'll weep 10,000 times over yourself until, as you're beginning to suspect that what is nothing weeps for the sake of being something in that moment, other than the fact that the shoe fit and I put it on. Sorry for the long delay. I'm deciding what it is that how I want to finish that thought. If this life, if God's life, which we do not and cannot know directly, but that we can enter into that flow of light that never stops acting upon the darkness to bring about a new form and a new birth that recognizes the relationship between what seems to be opposing forces? If I can put on that life, put on that light, enter into it, it means that there must be a virtually, how do I say this? Is anything in the movement of a river apart from anything in the movement of that river? So that no matter what it is that transpires in the movement of that river, it is all and each serving the movement of that river. So it is with this idea of what we think is our death. The river without beginning and end can't end, and it never begins. Something the mind can't even begin to fathom. But that you have in you the possibility of participating in that. Never in thought, never just in emotion, but the whole of it. So that he feels sadness. Have any of you ever felt sadness? Seeing what? What is the sadness? What is it that I mourn over? I mourn over myself. But I mourn over myself not just as this individual by the name of Doug who suddenly sees all that I've been doing and that I am has been for nothing. But seeing that because I participated in this great nothingness, the whole of my life has come to nothing for myself or anyone else. That moment can't be described. They write books on love. You can write a book on remorse that would never end. Why can't it just be, let that sadness be there? Let it be part of that movement. The revelation of that sadness that was never there in my life before came because something came and showed me all that I had been before. So out of that, a new birth, a new experience, a new expression of myself. Now I want to know what that expression is. I want to know what to do with it. You can't know what to do with what is revealed in your being unless you are outside of it telling yourself what it means. Then you're outside of the flow. We're so knowledge hungry. You don't know it. All my mind wants to do is to know. Because then what it knows, it can cling to and be balanced by. Failing to see that everything that my mind knows becomes the problem, becomes the next thing against the flow. Do you see that? That's as good as I can do, Doug. Stay in it. The shoe fits, wear it. Wow. I'm part of the horror of this world. Oh my God. I thought it was them and these and that, and I thought it was everyone else but me. Oh, no. Then I see, sweet God, I am the world. Now you understand that. But the minute that you see you are the world, you are no longer the world you were, because something new has come into it. And when that newness comes into that old world, naturally that old world is going to say, oh no. Because now I can't continue being that, although you will, and everyone will continue to be what they've been until there's so much evidence in a literally emotional, mental, physical photograph, in a picture that you can no longer escape. Then you sit in the middle of all that. Everything comes in, changes the structure, but never changes the awareness of all that is being changed in that movement. That's it. Over to you, Doug.
All right, Guy, we have another question on sadness, so I'm going to bring it in right now.
Sure.
A written question, and it's from Jerry, and he says, I'm such a sad man. After all the knowledge I've acquired, I can still be destroyed by a girl with whom I've been in a long-distance relationship for 5 years. Now that I've met her, she said she doesn't see me as her man after I caught her texting another guy. Now I am stuck in the role of learning about narcissists and other useless stuff that doesn't really help me. I want to text this guy and confront him to find out if something happened. God, I am lost.
No, you're just a human being, Jerry. Being properly said, taken into a revelation of something that you had no idea Jerry was and will remain if you don't use these kind of moments as best you can use them. What if I didn't set myself against anything? Can you imagine a life like that? You can see he's set against this man that he thinks has stepped into his shoes. You can see he's set against his future love's embrace of himself. You can see also that he's now set himself against himself because what's wrong with me that she doesn't see me the way I want to be seen. You can see 10,000 different ways in which what? In which Jerry is resisting the shoe that's on his foot. Can you not? And all Jerry knows, although he must suspect something other, or he wouldn't have written such an honest message, all I know to do is to not want this disturbance. But what if Jerry, if he's been listening to this talk, understands that this resistance is part of my transformation? This resistance is part of the river of life. And that nothing changes in that river of life without that aspect of that river, that resistance. You know that every molecule everything resists being moved. Do you know that? Everything resists being moved. But on the other hand, there is an irresistible movement. I resist being moved, but something is moving. So here's this movement, and it's going against me. It's not going against you, Jerry. It's trying to help you see that this Jerry who's suddenly seeing, I can't believe that I could be this lost. Because you know, how many of you know he's just describing the bare surface of the torment that he's in? Yes or no? Out loud so he knows. Yeah. You can't describe the torment. Who hasn't been there? Jerry, 100,000 years ago, I fell in love. She broke my heart, fell asleep, went to sleep with another man. I used to drive 50 miles to sit in front of her house and wait to see when she got home. Is that not madness? Did it feel like madness then? It was painful, but I didn't think it was mad. I had to know. No one does that to me. Do you not see me? I have so much possibility. How could anybody not love me? I'm not making light of your situation, Jerry. I'm just trying to let you understand you're not alone. And more importantly, you're not alone because something has come designed by heaven. That's what's so hard to understand, isn't it? How could this be heaven sent? One day, how many of you know the moments that you've absolutely wanted the least to do with come some point in time you realize was actually heaven sent? Yes or no? Out loud so he hears. Yes. And why was it heaven sent? Because I had no idea what kind of person I was. And here came this moment of karma, something acting on what I had clinged to and kept as myself, protected jealously, this image, my ideas. Then something comes along, boom, slams into me. And all I can think of is the idiot that's causing the pain. The man that you're blaming didn't cause the pain. He and she are I call them celestial agents of the divine. They're acting in accordance to the karma that they are creating for themselves and that they will continue to experience. You have to decide whether you want to use the movement of that system to be a different kind of human being. And no one can help, no one can make you do that. You know when it'll change, Jerry? When you see how absolutely futile it is to hate. And the only one hurt by your judgments are you. That's when it changes. But in order to do that, I have to sit there and actually see the movement, don't I? I have to not pull myself out and blame parts of it for the pain. I have to see that I'm a participant in the entire flow of the moment and let it do what it will do to me, for me, by the grace of God. Repeat after me. To me, for me, by the grace of God. Let that be part of at least your wish to see that, Jerry, and things will change. You'll see. Over to you, Doug.
All right, Guy, we're at the top of the hour, and we have one person in the queue and 6 questions, written questions. So we'll just cruise on.
Cruise on.
All right, here's Fanny.
Hi, Fanny.
Fanny, you'll need to unmute yourself. There you go.
Say hello, Fanny.
Yeah, her microphone's green, but we don't hear her.
I see. So everything seems copacetic, Fanny. I'm not sure why we're not hearing you, but maybe Kate or somebody can. Kate's messaging you in the background, and we'll get you back on. We'll get you squared away. Back over to you.
Go ahead. Yeah, I'll go ahead and mute her now, and let's read the next question, written question. And this is from Christine. And she asks, here is a question. Where do boundaries fit into putting on the shoe? Accepting. Are you saying setting the boundary is the action as a result of the transformation?
Let me turn that around for you. She said, what she's saying, where do boundaries fit into putting on the shoe? Acceptance. Because you can't possibly be telling me that I should accept someone who abuses me. Of course I'm telling you, don't ever accept anybody who abuses you. But you could, on the other hand, ask yourself, what is it in me that got into this relationship that wants to blame those who abuse me? When I had to have put on a certain shoe at a certain point in time, now I'm getting I'm looking at the fruit on the branch. And I'm going, oh no, that's not my branch. Yeah, everything is. So one side, where do you put boundaries? And are you saying setting the boundary is the action as a result of the transformation? I don't know if she means this, but I'll explain it. The transformation creates, without you having to decide what boundaries are, what the boundary is. As you become new, you will necessarily see a bigger world. As you see a bigger world, you'll have a new understanding of what the former boundaries were, what created them, which is usually some kind of fear or dread, and you'll begin to understand that fear or dread, when it's revealed, can serve me if I don't resist someone stepping into that boundary. This morning I made a note. I don't think I'm ever going to get to it at home. That we don't think to ourselves, we know action as a way in which to change things, do we not? We never think of non-action as an action. But non-action is as much an act. Look, this is what I'm going to do. I may get into it over the December talks. Christ was the perfect expression of someone who knew perfect action and someone who knew perfect non-action. And all of those actions, whether active or passive in their expression, were perfect to the moment because they were part of answering the karma of that moment individually and globally. So non-action, I don't need to tell you who I am. You can call me what you want. Action, heal the deaf, the dumb, and the blind. So action appropriate to the moment, non-action appropriate to the moment. But only intelligence can tell you whether non-action or action is copacetic to completing the moment. Do you understand that? So I have to be in that world where I can see that this action I'm about to take, setting a boundary, is actually the creation of a consciousness that'll never escape the boundaries it sets, because it actually creates them so it can feel like someone just crossed it. That's what it does. It wants the pain. On the other hand, I can be someone who realizes, you know what, I've got this boundary, but I'm starting to realize the only one contained by it is me. I'm the one punished by the boundary, but I want to punish the one who crosses it. So then I can start to see, well, maybe this boundary is really just some form of resistance to the revelation of something that I came into this moment with. And maybe I need to just kind of expand the boundary a little bit to see what happens. So I'll take non-action, and then I'll learn from what transpires through the karma of that new relationship what the real boundaries and non-boundaries are. That's the best I can do. Over to you, Doug.
All right, here's the next written question, Guy, and it comes from Tony. Tony asks, please discuss narcissism. I have a healthy self-love, healthy self-respect. I know it sources my healthy love and healthy respect for others. And then there are people I meet who mirror this plus. For example, recently we had a board meeting where it was discussed and decided upon that a certain line of action brought up by Mr. N, not me, would not be followed. 2 days later, Mr. N goes ahead and does it still, unilaterally. Hand to palm moment.
So there's a lot of stuff going on in that question. But if it's the Tony, I think it's the Tony, I'm going to answer it somewhat differently. What is narcissism? Not the fancy schmancy psychiatry, psychological. What is narcissism? This is narcissism at a glance. Everywhere I go, in fact, I was doing an interview 2 days ago. I was on this topic. And I was asked a similar question about, you know someone's older when they call it a handheld device. These handheld devices. So I've got a handheld device. Do you? Now, what is this handheld device? What created the need for it? I'm not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. The fact that we have technology the way we have it today has helped this foundation become a global source of insight. But here's what created this handheld device, is the fact that I can't bear not looking at myself. That's what cell phones, iPads, apart from the practical use of them, that's all they are, is me looking at myself. I'm looking at the world, am I not? I can't take my eyes off the latest fashion. I can't remove my mind from the recipes. I can't bear not knowing what someone else is doing, even though I hate them. I want to be like this person. Everything that we look at in this world, we are looking at a mirror of ourselves. Everything. You look at these children, God help them, they have been sacrificed because they can't take their eyes off of a world that they think is outside of them, when what they're seeing is the experience of themselves in the image, in that camera, in that handheld device. And you're absolutely complicit in it. You've enabled them because you yourself are addicted to looking in this handheld device, this mirror of myself. And when I see, which is one of the reasons I look in this, why do you think you look at the news? When I look at it, I'm in pain because it's not the way it's supposed to look. So I'm looking at this scene that happened, and I'm not discounting. You're on a board of directors. I have a board, B-O-R-E-D. And we all said, and then somebody didn't do what they're supposed to do. Why am I in pain over that? Because I'm looking in the mirror and I know what that mirror is supposed to reflect, which is that my opinion is the only opinion. Maybe that man is the devil himself, Mr. N. Let him be the devil. Don't you be the devil's partner. See, you want reasons for negativity. You want reasons for pain. And it doesn't make sense to you that you have pain because, as she said, I'm the embodiment of all these other things. So I can't possibly be in pain. Has to be this person. If the shoe fits, wear it. What a brilliant lesson, not because I've said it. I'm always putting off the shoe, are you not? I'm always figuring out how to change what I see in the very thing that my mind created. And everything that I try to change in what my mind created is a creation of the mind that creates that karma. That's what narcissism is. Narcissism is. I can't stop looking at myself, and I love what I see sometimes. Is it? And then, holy crud, are you kidding me? Look at these idiots. Are you putting me on? Nobody's putting you on. You've put on the shoe of this world, and you don't know you've put it on. And if you want to know whether that's true or not, you don't have to do anything too big. Just put it down for like 2 or 3 days. You'll find yourself drooling. I got the heebie-jeebies. What do they call it? The DTs. I've got the DTs. Why? Because I'm not getting my fix. How's that for an answer? Over to you, Doug.
All right, Guy, we're going to try Fanny once more.
Prove this, not me, prove this wrong. Don't just say I hate it, or you're wrong, or you're this, or you're that. That's nonsense. You've been doing that your whole life. Prove this wrong. Make your life the experimental entrance into a river in which you never take off the shoe that comes on your foot when people don't do or do as you've said. Just see what happens. You'll prove it to yourself. Then your consciousness will start to change, which is the only hope, Tony, that Mr. N has. You set yourself against Mr. N, you're Mrs. N. Which rhymes with no flow. And on you go. We go. Here we go. It's the way my mind works. What can I do? Over to you, Doug.
All right, we're going to try Fanny again. Fanny, I'm going to unmute you. Now you can unmute yourself on the, let's see if we can hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes. Good job, Kate.
Oh, yay, yippee. So I'm calling from France. I do apologize for my French accent. Hope you can understand me.
Ce n'est pas problème.
Parfait. In French, maybe then.
No. Je parle un peu.
So, Guy?
Oui.
Okay. I really wanted to thank you so much for all these valuable teachings. The last 2 weeks, I've been experiencing at work a heavy situation. Well, it's not so heavy, but my mind make it it turned it into drama.
Yeah.
And thanks to one of your talk on Insight Timer, I was able to see all the blah blah of my mind, all the frustration and the bitterness and the anger and the BS, basically.
Yes.
And thanks to your talk, it brought me a lot of peace.
Yeah.
And I was able to see how much my mind was emphasizing things and how much suffering, useless suffering,
Yes.
it was creating.
Yes.
And basically, I reached a point where I'm fed up with suffering and fed up with being manipulated by this lower level of consciousness.
Yes. What a good,
So thank you so much for that light.
you know, Fanny, what a miracle it is that this river moves through every soul on the planet, present or not. And there you are over there in France. Here we are in Merlin, Oregon. And we can see, can we not? It's just one mind and one heart, can't we?
Yeah.
You stay close, I know you will. It's just beginning, Fanny. It's always just beginning. I don't have words for that, but that's the case. Because every time that you see something like you did, and you put on that shoe and you wore it without resenting or resisting the conditions that produced it, that you came out on the other side of that moment a different woman than the one who went into it, and there's no end to that river and all that comes through its changes, no end to it. Then you know something about what it means, the real rebirth of putting on the Christ, of being the sacrificial lamb, all of the words that apply religiously to the actual experience of being someone who lays down your life for the sake of something greater than yourself. It's all in there, every last part of it, and more than my mouth will ever utter. Nice to talk to you, Fanny. Thank you.
Thank you.
You know what, Doug? We'll hold the remaining questions unless, is there anybody that wants to come up and speak? Anybody? Here comes Katie, here comes Wayne. Yeah, we'll hold the remaining questions for Wednesday night, where we're going to look at this topic, I think, a little more deeply still. We're just going to build on this and build on this until we get to the actual solstice in which you and I, if we work hard, actually leading up to it, but through it, you'll see. And isn't it amazing? It isn't really that so much that you change, but the whole changes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kate. Hello to our online audience, too. And I don't know, was moved to express some appreciation on so many levels. I just felt like this little person here was fed on, like, in ways that I couldn't do for myself if I tried. and it just seemed like there were so many impressions today. And my favorite line from the talk was, "Real life is self-settling." I actually used that like a dozen times during our class today. And then I also just want to say I have a great appreciation for all the folks who tune in out there. You know, I saw people on YouTube or tuning in from South Africa, a person from Ghana, Fanny from France. I just have this little visual of like, you know, this connection between all these people who are searching for real answers. And it's like when we come together, there's like a little increase in light or something, a little in that sort of energy that, or that light that, I don't know how to put it into words. I don't want to get foofy, but I feel it.
Yes. And what a grand feeling that is.
Hi, everybody. My name's Wayne. I don't think there's a class that goes by in which I have just great gratitude and being a president for the school. This has been an answer. The school is the answer that I've been longing for my whole life. And there's a certain, well, and another subject is that there's a condition that I've been working with. It's called dehydration. And in working and trying to rehydrate this body, I realized that there is a river of water that flows through me. And it's just a tributary of the greater flow of life. And I just find myself wanting more and more and more. And I need to, learning to step into the shoe and stay in the shoes and walk in this life. Just accepting what's been given to me, accepting this karma, and learning to love life again, because this lower nature just complains about it and ends up, instead of being part of the flow, you can be just a boulder in it, and the flow of life flows around you, and there's nothing but pain and sorrow in it. I just want more. So thank you, Guy.
Roger's coming up.
Hey everybody, my name's Roger. You know, it's the first 20 minutes into the talk, you know, my mind's going, I don't understand. I don't get it. I'm trying to understand. Using the mind. And then I just said, okay, I just don't get it. Let's just listen and be present. And then all of a sudden, I started getting impressions, and I started getting it. I stopped trying.
Yeah.
But I do have a question, and this is something that I want to make sure that I'm on the right track on. Resistance in the moment is actually, it's a good thing. It's a wake-up call in a sense. But resisting it because you're caught in that sense of self, in thought, and you're pushing it away because I don't want that circumstance to be that way. What's outside of you to be that way. They're kind of two different things, right?
Two different things.
Okay. So, because I hear it put in the positive and I hear it put in the negative, and I was a little bit confused.
Neither one is positive or negative. Neither one. They both serve the same purpose. Mm-hmm. Resistance, when all is said and done, again, to be looked at as we'll look ever so deeply as we go into the talks in the pines. There's no revelation without resistance. Nothing is revealed without resistance. You wouldn't see a tree. You wouldn't see a blade of grass. I wouldn't look at you. I wouldn't see you. But this body accepts some energy and it denies some energy. The outcome is the appearance of a form in space and time. Yeah. And I see what I do out there in the world separate from me, because resistance reveals time, space, and distance. Inwardly, resistance reveals. The moment that something in me resists anything that transpires, that which is resisting is revealed. That which is resisting is revealed. When I start to be able to see that which is resisting being revealed, now I know what's been concealed from me and my participation in it illegitimately, incorrectly.
I think that's where I've struggled, because I've always unknowingly kind of gone into thought trying to figure it out.
Yeah, that's the wrong place to go.
Yeah, you've said it 1,000 times. I get it. Instead of just, there's nothing to think about. It's just, this is bringing something for me to see.
Just wear it.
Just wear it.
Just put it on.
This actually brought up, in a talk I listened to probably 3 years ago. This popped into my head. It's wear the coat.
Yeah.
It wasn't the shoe at the time. It was the coat.
All right. Well, we're moving down.
So.
Put it on. I don't want to put it on. Put it on. No. Put it on. Put it on. Okay. I can't. But then you've put on seeing yourself. Then their job's done. If the shoe fits, will you? Will you bear wearing it? If you do, you'll be given something new that you couldn't see before. And then you'll want your eyes and your heart and your mind to open up wider. You'll make more time for the things that you've avoided your whole life. You won't be so afraid. You won't be so angry. You'll be a much nicer person to be around. And wouldn't that be nice? How many are in favor of everyone around you being nicer? Starts with you. Bye.